Welcome to the deep dive. We are taught, practically from day one, that being a good person means stepping up. Like, if you see a problem, you fix it. If you see someone struggling, you lend a hand.
Right. It's basically the baseline definition of altruism in our society.
Exactly. But what if jumping in to help someone is actually the worst thing you could do for them?
Man, it is a deeply uncomfortable question to ask. We are so conditioned to view constant helpfulness as just this absolute undeniable good. Questioning that impulse feels incredibly counterintuitive, maybe even a little dangerous.
And that tension right there is why we're dedicating this entire deep dive to one specific, highly provocative piece of writing. Today we are looking at a translated 2007 philosophical essay by Deiform Celestial. It's titled Further Discussion on Do Not Offer Help Unless Asked For.
Yeah, quite the title.
It really is. And our mission here is to use this text to challenge our deeply ingrained assumptions about charity, the ethics of intervention, and, well, what it actually means to be helpful. So, okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here is how the author takes traditional morality and just flips it upside down. Instead of viewing unprompted helpfulness as a virtue, the text frames it as a potential disruption to the natural order of the universe.
Which is wild to think about.
Right. By constantly swooping in to act as a savior, we might actually be causing profound, invisible harm to the very people we are trying to save.
But before we get into the actual mechanisms of how that harm happens, we really need to set a boundary for our analysis today. Because this text relies heavily on specific spiritual frameworks, things like karma, the Tao, reincarnation, and the concept of karmic debt.
Yeah, those are foundational to the author's argument.
They are. So to be incredibly clear to you, listening right now, we are not taking sides here. We are not endorsing these spiritual concepts as objective truth, nor are we dismissing them.
Exactly. Our goal is just to step inside the author's logic to understand this really unique perspective on human behavior. We're just exploring the architecture of the argument from within the boundaries the author has set up.
Right, so to understand why the author thinks playing the savior is dangerous, we first have to understand how they view the universe itself. Everything is grounded in the concept of the Tao.
Which the text defines as the consciousness of the greatest creator.
Yeah, and the core premise there is that nature fundamentally manages itself.
It does. Everything operates within this overarching system, which has its own built-in mechanisms for protection, balance, and consequences. I mean, the text points to wildflowers in a field.
Okay.
They don't need human intervention to survive, right? They're nourished by the system itself, sunlight and raindrops. Birds find their own food. Wild animals on the African plains follow these ancient, self-regulating rules for reproduction.
So humans are just one of the natural species created within this massive system.
Yeah.
The author's point is that we, too, have the capacity to grow and regulate ourselves without constant external interference.
Exactly. And the author makes a vital distinction here between the microscopic perspective and the macroscopic perspective. Because up close, on a microscopic level, nature often looks chaotic or harsh or totally random. But when you zoom out to the macroscopic view, you see that the chaos is actually the engine of a perfectly orderly system.
I love that. It makes me think of looking at a massive traffic jam from a helicopter versus, being stuck down in a car on the highway.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, because down in the car, your microscopic view is just random braking, people cutting you off. It's total chaos. You think the system is entirely broken. But from the helicopter looking down, you realize it's a functioning system of fluid dynamics.
Yeah.
Like, there are identifiable patterns.
That is a perfect visualization, because the author argues that it is exactly this overarching macroscopic order that allows scientists to discover natural rules and create the formulas that define our reality.
Right.
Without this macroscopic order, there are no guarantees. The text notes that without it, the sun wouldn't reliably rise from the east. Rivers wouldn't flow to the ocean, they would just arbitrarily flood up into the mountains.
So if the universe is this massive self-regulating system that already has a specific trajectory, it really makes you wonder, does human intervention act like a virus in the software?
Oh, wow.
Like, if we try to impose our microscopic idea of fairness onto the macroscopic system, are we just messing up the code?
The author explores that exact friction, actually, by moving from abstract natural laws to the brutal reality of cause and effect in survival.
Okay, lay it on me.
Well, the text introduces the law of causality through the lens of the food chain.
Right, the eagle and the rabbit. So imagine you're walking through the wilderness and you see an eagle actively hunting a rabbit. The rabbit is terrified, it's running for its life. The question the author poses is simple. Do you intervene and save the rabbit?
And, I mean, the immediate microscopic impulse is to save the prey. It feels like the definition of compassion to step in and stop an active kill.
But if you wave your arms, scare the eagle, and save the rabbit, what happens next?
Right, there are consequences.
Huge consequences. Because the author points out that back in the eagle's nest, there are a dozen eaglets waiting to be fed. If the mother eagle doesn't bring back that rabbit, those babies starve to death.
So we are suddenly forced to weigh one rabbit against a dozen baby eagles.
Yeah, and how do you even begin to calculate the math on whose life is more valuable?
You can't. You cannot calculate it. By ignoring the established macroscopic process of nature in favor of a short-term feeling of compassion, you end up triggering a much larger tragedy.
You think you're saving a life, but you're actually just starving a nest.
Exactly. And the text pushes this logic into an even darker, more extreme scenario.
Oh, the puppy dilemma.
Yeah. The author presents a hypothetical situation involving a local ecosystem being decimated by packs of wild wolves or jackals. Ordinary dogs are entirely useless against them.
So what do the locals do?
To create a dog tough enough to protect the area, the locals fence in a litter of puppies. They intentionally let them go hungry, starving them to the point where survival instincts kick in, and these puppies actually start fighting and killing each other.
Ugh, it is a horrific image, particularly for a modern sensibility that prizes comfort and safety above all else.
It really is.
It goes against every instinct I have. But the text explains that the brutal process yields an undeniable result. The one last surviving dog from that pen emerges as a formidable, vicious opponent. It becomes the natural enemy of the wild wolves.
Right, and because of that single hardened dog, the wolves are driven away and the wider ecosystem is saved from total destruction.
But man, watching that process happen.
Well, here's the trap the author sets for the reader's morality. If you were to walk by that pen on day 2, your immediate compassionate instinct would be to intervene.
Of course. I'd want to stop the puppies from fighting, feed them, rescue them.
But if you show that kindness, you prevent the creation of the one aggressive dog capable of fighting the wolves. By saving the puppies, you are indirectly condemning the entire local ecosystem to be destroyed by the wolf pack.
So what feels like pure compassion in the short term leads to massive systemic destruction in the long term. You know, it really makes me think of the modern phenomenon of helicopter parenting. Like if you constantly swoop in to do your kids' homework so they don't experience the pain of failing at class, you are essentially the person stopping the puppies from fighting.
Oh, that's a really interesting parallel.
You are saving them from discomfort today, but you are sending them out into the world completely unequipped to handle the wolves tomorrow.
And that translates perfectly to the author's view on the purpose of suffering. Suffering is not framed as a random, meaningless tragedy. It is an active, necessary mechanism for growth.
How so?
The text relies on classical philosophy here, suggesting that when heaven is about to confer a great responsibility on a person, it first exercises their mind with suffering. It subjects their bones and muscles to hard work, exposes them to hunger and poverty, and purposefully places massive obstacles in their path.
So the entire reason for that misery is to stimulate their mind, harden their nature, and improve them in places where they are incompetent. Wow. So if a well-intentioned person comes along and removes those obstacles, they are literally stealing that person's necessary growth.
They are. And we can see the logic of this law of causality clearly when applied to animals or broad character building. But the author does not stop there.
No, they don't.
They apply this exact same framework directly to everyday human interactions, which is where the essay becomes highly controversial.
Right. This is where we get the story of the ruffian in the boat.
Yes, let's talk about that.
So the author presents a scenario where a man is hurrying to the market, rushing to catch a departing ship. Suddenly, he is surrounded and entangled by a gang of ruffians. Because he is trapped and harassed, he misses his boat.
Unlucky for him.
Right.
Or so it seems.
Exactly. Because hours later, that specific ship gets caught in a massive storm at sea, capsizes, and every single passenger on board dies.
And the author asks, what would have happened if you had walked by during the harassment and acted out of pure compassion? If you had played the hero, chased away the ruffians, and kindly driven that man to the dock so he could catch his ship?
You would have directly sent him to his death. You would walk away feeling incredible about your virtuous act, completely blind to the fact that your intervention just marched a man straight into a tragedy.
It's a heavy thought.
It is. But here is where I struggle with this framework, though. How can anyone possibly know the future? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball to see that a ship is going to sink in 4 hours. Am I supposed to just ignore a mugging right in front of me because of a hypothetical storm?
That frustration is completely intentional. The author knows you cannot see the future. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the broader spiritual framework we established at the beginning, the author is not asking you to be psychic. They are asking you to trust in karmic destiny.
Okay, but how does the concept of karma justify walking away from someone in active distress?
Well, the text operates on the belief that life follows a strict law of causality across multiple lifetimes. A person who is currently experiencing severe hardship or harassment might be actively repaying karmic debts from wrongdoings in a previous life.
Okay, I'm following.
Letting them experience that hardship is, according to the author, the compassionate nature of the heavenly law, allowing them to clear their ledger and move forward.
So if I jump in and save them from that immediate suffering, their debts remain unsettled.
Exactly. The text argues that constantly rescuing people prevents them from paying their debts. Consequently, they will continue to reincarnate in the human world, repeatedly facing the same unresolved issues and accumulating boundless new debts. The author asks pointedly, by preventing their suffering, are you doing a good deed, or are you just trapping them in an endless cycle of reincarnation?
That is a radical redefinition of what it means to be a good person.
Yeah.
And the author creates two distinct categories to explain this shift, right? Great benevolence versus small virtue.
Yes.
If small virtue is our ego-driven need to help and be seen as a savior, great benevolence must be the discipline it takes to just stand back and let the process happen.
Spot on. Small virtue is what the author accuses most of modern society of practicing. It is jumping in to chase off the ruffians. It is feeding the puppies. It feels good to us, and it looks incredibly noble to society, but it fundamentally disrupts the deeper procedures of the universe.
Wow.
Great benevolence, on the other hand, requires a profound, almost agonizing level of respect for the unseen path. It means allowing the flow of natural procedures to happen, even when it is incredibly painful to witness.
Okay, think about that friend who constantly makes terrible financial decisions. They max out their credit cards, and then they come to you in a total panic.
We all know someone like that.
Right. Well, small virtue is writing them a check to bail them out. You get to play the hero, and they avoid the pain of eviction. But great benevolence is keeping your wallet closed.
Because bailing them out doesn't fix the underlying issue.
Exactly. Great benevolence is the discipline to watch them hit rock bottom, knowing that the pain of bankruptcy might be the only mechanism strong enough to actually change their financial habits for the rest of their life.
That is the exact friction the author is highlighting. Great benevolence often looks indistinguishable from cruelty to an outside observer.
Which is tough. I can hear people listening to this right now and wondering if the author just wants us to be totally apathetic. Like if I see someone bleeding out on the street, should I just tip my hat to their karmic debt and keep walking? Does the author provide any actual mechanism for knowing when to act?
They do, and it is the crucial pivot of the entire essay. It's actually right there in the title. Do not offer help unless asked for.
The rule of the ask.
Exactly.
The author states very clearly that if someone does actively ask for your help, you should do your absolute utmost to assist them. The request itself changes the dynamic entirely.
Because the explicit request for help acts as permission to intervene in their trajectory. You are no longer imposing your will on their system, you are being invited into it.
That makes sense.
But the text acknowledges that reality is rarely that black and white. The author introduces the scenario of a massive car crash to explore the gray areas.
Right, so someone is in a terrible accident and is trapped under a car. Do you help them? The text says you have to listen to the drive of your own heart. If you literally hear their cry for help, you should bravely and fearlessly rush to their rescue without hesitation. You heard the ask.
But what if you do not hear them ask for help? The text states that in that scenario you have to weigh it for yourself.
Which is pretty vague. How exactly do you weigh it? Is the author saying we should just rely on a gut feeling in a life or death situation?
Well, it comes down to analyzing your own motivations. Weighing it means asking yourself, am I acting on a direct, undeniable call to action, or am I actively inserting myself into a situation to satisfy my own desire to be a savior?
Right.
The author provocatively asks, why did he have an accident in the first place? It forces you to consider the unseen trajectory that led to the crash.
And the essay then turns this critical lens onto modern society as a whole. The author critiques our tendency to aggressively condemn anyone who doesn't immediately jump in to save a life, labeling them as cowards or monsters.
It is a Devastating critique of performative charity. The author asks the reader to look in the mirror. Can you truly act as the savior in every dangerous situation? Countless lives are lost every single day across the globe that you do absolutely nothing about. We selectively choose our outrage.
We really do. And the text poses a really haunting question. What happens after you save someone? You pull them from the wreckage, but can you solve all the systemic problems they're going to face tomorrow?
Probably not.
Can you guarantee that just because you kept their lungs breathing, they're going to have a fulfilled life? The author writes that for some people, continuing to survive in their current circumstances might actually be worse than death.
It's hard to hear, but we love to provide a Band-Aid. It satisfies our small virtue. We can post about it on social media, get our validation, and walk away. But we rarely stick around to deal with the long-term systemic reality of the person we just saved.
Which brings us to the author's example regarding African famine. The text acknowledges that donating money to aid famine victims is a charitable act, and it is worthy of promotion. But it immediately challenges the ultimate value of that action. If you feed someone today, what happens tomorrow?
The author is pushing for structural thinking. Why is there a famine in the first place? It rarely comes down to a simple lack of sunlight or rain. It involves complex geopolitical and economic trajectories. Handing out food is small virtue. It temporarily relieves the symptom, but ignores the disease.
It is the ultimate systemic versus Band-Aid fix. The author leans on the classic proverb, stating that handing out a fish is nowhere near as valuable as providing fishing tools.
Exactly.
Giving someone the means to sustain themselves aligns closer to great benevolence because it fosters their independent trajectory rather than creating a cycle of dependency on your charity.
And if a reader is still stubbornly resisting this framework, insisting that they must go out and proactively help everyone they see suffering, the author issues a brilliantly biting, sarcastic challenge.
Oh, I love this part. The author basically says, oh, you want to save everyone unprompted? Good. Go ahead. There are countless young people who cannot afford school. Go pay for them right now.
Yeah, there are elderly people plagued by disease. Go cure them.
There are families falling apart, people suffering emotional abuse, people eating rougher food and living in worse conditions than you. Go, please. Dedicate every second of your life to helping all of them.
It is a rhetorical checkmate. The author is proving that universal salvation by human hands is mathematically and practically impossible. We selectively choose our interventions based on what is convenient, what is visible, or what makes us feel good, while actively ignoring the vast ocean of suffering that exists as a natural part of the world.
Bringing all of this together, we live in a society where, as the author notes, there are vastly more people who talk big than people who actually do good deeds. Given everything we have discussed today about the dangers of intervention, what is the actual baseline for living a good life according to this text?
The baseline the author provides is radically simple. Refrain from doing wrong yourself. Do not cause trouble for other people or for society. And when someone explicitly asks you for help, give it to them. That is it.
Wow.
If you can manage those three things, you have achieved a massive amount of good.
It is a fascinating relief. Think about the era we live in. We are constantly bombarded by information overload. Our feeds are just an endless microscopic scroll of global tragedies, systemic failures, and individual crises.
It's exhausting.
It is. The overarching message is always that if you aren't actively trying to fix all of it, you are complicit. This essay offers a completely different path.
It acts as a philosophical permissions slip for you. It tells you that it is okay to step back. It is okay to trust the broader macroscopic process of the universe, the Tao, or simply the natural resilience of other people.
Yeah.
You do not have to carry the weight of the world's suffering on your shoulders, because attempting to do so might actually disrupt the necessary growth of the very people you are agonizing over.
You don't have to be the savior. And maybe, for everyone's sake, you shouldn't be. Which brings us to one final thing for you to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. Tomorrow, when you inevitably encounter a situation and you feel that familiar burning urge to jump in and solve someone else's problem, stop and ask yourself a question.
A really hard question.
Am I doing this because it will genuinely serve their long-term growth and independence? Or am I just doing this to satisfy my own need for small virtue? Whose struggle do you need to respect and intentionally leave alone today?